We're going to do the Haggada today. We're going to try to go through it a little bit and see what we can learn. So to start, first we want to talk a little bit about what does it mean, Yetzias Mitzrayim, because this is what the night is celebrating. The night is celebrating an event that happened a long time ago, thousands of years ago. And this is interesting because we take these things for granted. We grew up with celebrations, and it seems normal to us that some days in the year are designated for celebrations of different things. But usually, when a person has an emotion, it's related to his immediate environment. It's related to something that he's experiencing, and that's causing him to feel something. In this case, we're having emotions that are related to thousands of years ago. Literally, events that took place thousands of years ago. And we have emotions about those events every year. And emotions are extremely meaningful. Emotions are the forms of life that allow the human being to interact with reality. And so emotions are sort of like the song that reality sings within a human soul. And when we connect back to such an ancient time and we create emotions based on those events, it's important that you understand the meaning behind the emotions in order to give it its proper spiritual power, that we understand what it is we're celebrating, what's the goal, what's the purpose. Because otherwise, even a ritual that's based on wisdom can turn into superstition, can turn into mundane meaninglessness. And so it's very important that we try to peel off the layers of the mundane world, of what the world has been through in those few thousand years, because the consciousness of man has gone through a very big transformation since that time. And man doesn't think like man used to think. Man doesn't understand life like man used to understand life. Man doesn't see events and emotions the way that man used to. And so we are connecting to a different time, to a different understanding of life. So we want to understand their worldview. We want to understand, what does it mean to be in Mitzrayim? What does it mean to leave Mitzrayim? What does it mean to us? Because we know, as we'll see in the Haggada, it says, Chayav Adam liris es atzmoi, Ke'ilu hu yotza miMitzrayim. He has to see like it was he himself as an individual that left Mitzrayim. It's not enough that he realizes that once upon a time there were people somewhere and they somehow went through a miracle. A person is obligated, in order to fulfill his duty to the night, in order to create the best possible situation for himself, for the rest of the journey, that he should be able to take advantage of this night and realize himself as the one leaving Egypt. So what does that look like? What does that look like for us? What does that mean? And so to understand Egypt, we have to go back to a time when life was very, very different than today. Because not that long ago, in the big scheme of things, only about 4,000 years, life started anew. Life began with, in the areas that we live, there was one family that became a big family, and that family ended up being billions of people. And so when that family was just a family, it was quite evident what it means to be human, what the experience is about, what it has to offer. And there were differing opinions about what the purpose of this is, how we're supposed to go about this experience. And at some point in that debate, some people were more intelligent than others. Some people had better intentions than others. Some people were more qualified at different things, because that's the nature of people. And the ones that had intelligence but didn't have the right interests, they started creating structures that created enslavement for the rest of the families. And this is how the countries became to be countries. So soon after that, if somebody was born into a slave family in Egypt, then they would know nothing else other than slavery. They would know no other state of mind, state of being. They would have no other neural development other than slavery, and that would make them addicted to slavery. It would mean that they wouldn't know how to approach life in any other context other than slavery. They wouldn't be able to experience any other emotion other than the emotions that they experienced in slavery. And so that becomes a perpetual state for that consciousness. And the people back then realized this very clearly. They realized very clearly how easily a human mind can be programmed into becoming a workhorse for other humans, or for interests, for ideas, for concepts, for nationalities, for any type of concept that we can implant in a human brain. We can make that human brain serve that concept with enough exposure by making that person dependent on that association that he has with that concept. He's going to have to serve that concept and service that concept, whether it's in his best interest or not. And so this was the bedrock of civilization. This was how we can create countries, nationalities, different people, and they serve together for a collective purpose and individually for their individual space within their confined understanding of what it means to be human. But that exposure of what it means to be human is limited to the context of the collective. It's limited to what the culture provides, what's available to them to experience. And so Avram Avinu lived in that time, and Avram Avinu was extremely displeased with this course of events because he understood the implications. He understood where this was going to go. Avram Avinu had very far vision, and he was very sincere, he was very authentic, and he realized things about life that were only available to be realized then. They became less and less available for realization as people became more and more established into their cultures, into their beliefs, into their nationalities, and they assumed that this is all there was, that this is what life means. How could it mean anything else? This is all I saw since I was born. It must be that this is everything. And so this was a very dangerous time. And thanks to some very sincere people, they figured out a way to interact with the force, to interact with the power that stands deeper than the part of us that can be manipulated. And so they wanted to tie us to that place within us that can never be manipulated, that is beyond manipulation. And the goal was that if we can go back to that state of being, then we can experience the original experience that was intended for us. And that experience gives us access to so much power, to so much wisdom, that humanity will never be enslaved ever again, whether it's to ideas, to beliefs, to concepts, or to anything else. The human spirit will reign supreme on this globe, on this planet, because that's the way it was meant to be. That's the way it always was. It still is that way right now also, except the human spirit is very unconscious. And while it reigns supreme, it is causing itself a lot of harm, a lot of damage, and to its environment. But ultimately, if we can go back to a state of Adam Rishon just to get a little understanding of what that means, the Zohar says that every day there's 48 drops of wisdom coming into the world. And this has to do actually with the actual brain function of how it secretes different juices, different chemicals that allow us to improve and increase our intelligence. And so the Zohar says we had 48 Nevi'im that gave Nevuah to Klal Yisrael. Each of these Nevi'im was receiving a flow, was receiving wisdom from one of these drops. And that gave him access to such deep wisdom, to such a deep Holy Spirit, that they were able to guide Klal Yisrael in line with the intelligence that designed life. And each one was different than the other one, because each one was receiving from a different drop. Adam HaRishon, before the Chet of the Eitz Hadas, he was receiving from all 48 drops at once, all the time. And so that's the level of intelligence that we're talking about. Combine all the Nevi'im, and that's the level of intelligence that a human being is supposed to have. That was the default setting. And then we wonder, why are we suffering? Why is life so complicated? Why don't we get it? Because we don't even have access to one drop. What do we have access to? We have access to thoughts that are based on what's called kishuf. What is kishuf? Kishuf is bondage. Bondage means that we create random associations, not based on nature, not based on reality, but simply based on happenstance, based on events that took place in our life, that are anecdotal, that don't have the meaning that we attribute to them. They have a very different meaning, but the way we attribute meaning to them, we create bondage, whether it's negative bondage to things that caused us suffering, to things that were around us when we were in trauma, when we were receiving painful emotions, or it could be positive. It could be that we received pleasure based on different things. We received pleasure from different people and events and places. And then that creates bondage in our mind as well. These forms of bondage are the opposite of wisdom, because they are random. They don't tell you about the meaning of life. They don't tell you about what it means to be you and how you can become a better you. They simply tell you what happened in the past. And that's how they tie you to your past. Because now your emotions are based on past events. And that means that you're not available in the present. Because we have to realize that our intelligence continues to grow as we go through life. Every moment we're more intelligent than the moment we were before. And so when we live life based on the past, when we live life based on bondage, based on events that took place in the past, it means that the more intelligent us doesn't get to live. The more intelligent us doesn't get to have his say. Who's talking? The little one, the one who didn't understand properly. The one who wasn't as intelligent as the one that is now. He happened to be the one that created such a deep scratch in my screen that I continuously live through that scratch. And that's bondage. That's kishuf. People used to know how to manipulate these associations, how to create different emotions in order to create different experiences for people. Those people were called sorcerers or witches, because they would be able to manipulate their own emotions and other people's emotions in order to create events, in order to create realities that were not in the ultimate benefit of the human being. And Mitzrayim was the ultimate source of kishuf. Mitzrayim was the wisest country that ever existed. And in fact, it went for a very long time because of its wisdom. However, the wisdom was being used to enslave the masses. The priests, the pharaohs, the royals were living in a dream world, in a world that none of us can imagine, where everything that they could possibly desire, any experience they could possibly want, they could have. And they didn't have to report to anybody. And the world didn't have any precedent on morals, on what's right and what's wrong and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And there was no Google, and there was no internet, and there was no news, and there was no tabloids. And so they lived in a way that the world was theirs. Pharaoh even made that declaration. He said, I am God. The river is mine and I created it. Li oiri v'ani asusi. And so this was the state of mind of those people. Nimrod, in the Tower of Babel, he knew, Chazal say, Yodas riboinoi, imechaven limrod bo. He knew who runs the world, but he was going to manipulate the forces in order to create an advantage for himself. And he didn't realize that beyond his intelligence is another intelligence that created him. As far as he might go, there's something else that is beyond you that has also been programmed by that same programmer who programmed all of it. The same rules that apply at the lower levels continue to apply until infinity, because that's how he designed it to be. And so we can create based on so we can create based on what we understand, but ultimately we have to report to a higher power. Something designed us, somebody, someone, some intelligence, some wisdom designed us, and we work a certain way, and we only work that way. We don't work any other way. So to us it might be ambiguous. What does that mean? What way do we work? What way do we not work? And it's okay, our intelligence is not there, but something had to have the power, the ability to do this. And so Pharaoh's statement was not being stupid. Pharaoh's statement was being very wise. In fact, Pharaoh was the wisest man in the world. That's why he can make that statement. But at the same time, there's still something that's above him, and that he didn't want to realize until Moshe Rabbeinu made him realize it. He pushed his nose into it until he smelled it. And then he knew something else is running this place that I can't understand. And that something else is called the Midas HaRachamim. That something else is called the ability of someone to realize that there is a power that is beyond everything, that created it so that he has an interest in everything. And this obviously requires very deep wisdom to understand Pharaoh's level. If we're at the simple level, if we're at our level, where we don't understand how the world works, we don't understand how much power we have, then we think that those people were silly. Those people were most certainly not silly. In fact, when the Torah wants to describe Shlomo HaMelech, it says Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest man of all, was wiser v'torah chachma Shlomo mikol chachmas Mitzrayim. So there was nothing silly about these people. There was nothing, they weren't children. They weren't like our leaders today that stand up in front of a mic and just make a fool of themselves. These people were very, very wise and understood life. They understood how things really operate, how they work, and what's possible and what's impossible, and what can be and what can't be, and what should you believe and what can't you believe, and if you believe it, what's that going to cause to your liver and to your kidneys? And these are people who understood these things. So we can't really compare what we know to what they know. We're not even human compared to them. And so only wisdom, only being able to control our own destiny makes us human. Until we are running on kishuf, so the Zohar refers to people like that as animals. They might be two-legged, they might be standing up straight, but they're not running from intelligence, they're running from the imagination. They haven't taken charge of their own destiny. And so you see in the Torah calls Klal Yisrael tzoin, right? It calls Klal Yisrael lambs. Okay, to be a lamb is not such a bad thing. To be a wolf could get you in a lot of trouble. And so intelligence is what makes a human being human. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for, is for humanity to become intelligent. Because until we're intelligent, we can't fill the role that we were meant to fill. And that means that everybody around us is going to suffer. And that means that we're going to suffer. And so only when we're going to reach the level of intelligence that is required to at least not do damage, then can HaKadosh Baruch Hu have his plan. Then can HaKadosh Baruch Hu finally realize his master plan, which is to give the world to the people. Hashemayim shemayim l'Hashem, v'oretz nosan livnei odam. He wants to give us the world. What's holding him back? That the people are not intelligent enough to receive the world. And so they have the world, he already gave it to them, but they're making a mess of it. And so Yetzias Mitzrayim means going to a place that is beyond kishuf, going to a place that is beyond bondage, allowing the intelligence of now to create the future and not the intelligence of the past. And this means that we can't predict the future, because how are we ever going to predict the future if we're not using the past? Only the past allows us to predict the future, and then sometimes we're afraid, and then sometimes we're concerned, and then sometimes we're depressed, and then sometimes we're worried. But if we don't have a past, because all the versions of ourselves in the past were not as intelligent as the one we have on our hands, so why would we even ask them? So then we don't really have a future either. We don't know what's in the future, because the future you is going to be so much more intelligent than this one. So why would you even bother trying to predict what's going to happen to him? And so Yetzias Mitzrayim is a deep realization about what it means to be alive, about what kind of heist was run on this planet over the last 4,000 years. And this is a reality. This is not something that is unverifiable. This is something that can be seen on a daily basis. Everybody you know is slaving away. Everybody you know. Everybody you know is doing things in their life that they would much rather not do, but they have to do it. And who is everybody doing it for? You can go search and you'll never find. They're doing it for nobody. There's nobody there. It's a demon. It's kishuf. It doesn't exist. It exists in the imagination of man. He says that he has to because everybody. Who is everybody? Who says? Nobody says. But they've been saying it for so many years. Nobody's been saying it for so many years that everybody believes it. And then it is a reality, because we do run the world. And if we make a reality, it becomes a reality. And if it's unpleasant, then we suffer the consequences. And so Yetzias Mitzrayim is a very serious message. It's a very deep message about what it means to be us. And that's something we have to realize. Because the trick to creating bondage, the trick to creating the appropriate kishuf, is understanding the emotions of man, understanding the underlying structure that creates man's experience so that you can manipulate him. And the underlying structure that creates man's experience is the zodiac. And so through understanding the zodiac and understanding the times and understanding the influences of the stars, these people could manipulate man and create structures for man where his emotions would be activated, even though in reality he didn't receive nothing. He gets excited from things that have no meaning. And this is through culture. This is through herd mentality. This is through everybody. So, okay, so I'll go with it. And then if we activate our emotions for nothing, then we lose sensitivity to what's real. We lose the subtle intelligence that knows to tell the difference between what's real and what's not real, what's wisdom and what's magic. And this is the time of the year where the zodiac goes into the new cycle. This full moon is the moon of Aries, where the zodiac starts to go into a new influence. And so this is an important time to have bir chometz. What is chometz? Chometz represents a form of bread. Bread is what man makes with the ingredients of nature. And so the word chita, which is what you make bread from, is gematria 22. And that's against the 22 letters with which man creates for himself an experience. But that experience can sometimes linger in our imagination, and really it's an experience from the past. It doesn't belong in our imagination. We shouldn't be cooking with it any longer. But it's still hanging out over there. It's still stuck in our imagination, and it's affecting the present. It's affecting the now. And so that's called chometz. Chometz is when the dough lingers, when the imagination lingers, when the imagination is not fresh, is not present, is not clean. And so now, in the beginning of a new cycle of the zodiac, we have to clear out all the backlog, all the chometz, all the dough, all the words, all the emotions that are stuck in our system. And we want to start clean, we want to start fresh. If we're fresh and we use our emotions, we create relationships and associations that help us, that are good to us, that's fine. All year round we can eat chometz. But when we go into a new start, when we go into a new phase, then we clear out. And the negative we have to clear out constantly so that it doesn't scratch the future. So Yetzias Mitzrayim is coming home. Coming home to where? Coming home to a reality that the world hasn't experienced for 4,000 years. Where a person is walking on the earth and he feels that the earth is his. He feels that it was created for him. He feels that the environment is perfect, customized to his needs. That was the experience that these people had when there was nobody else around. And that meant that their brain, their hearts, were going through an experience that is unimaginable today. And that experience is the only experience man was ever meant to experience, until he made a big miscalculation. He misunderstood. And so we have to find our way back to that experience, and that's called Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's what Judaism is all about. Judaism is all about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now Yetzias Mitzrayim is where a nation is born. A message is born. That's all it is a message. It's a message that's carried through time, through people, through DNA, that is going to materialize at some point. And that point is called Yetzias Mitzrayim. That point is when Klal Yisrael realizes that they represent something that is much deeper than what's imaginable. That man is something that's much deeper than is imaginable. That the relationship between the Creator and man, through wisdom, is infinite. And this is the message that Torah has for all of us. Is that we need to understand the past. We need to connect emotionally with the past, because the past is more honest emotionally than the present. In the past, the truth was more obvious. In the past, what people were doing, what people were up to, was visible. And today it's all a blur. Today it's just everybody doing their own thing, and each one thinking that they must be right. And that's simply because there is no wisdom, there's no truth. It's all based on bondage. It's all based on kishuv. It's all based on being told things that even the one saying didn't understand what he's saying. And so this is something we're going to have to pierce through. We're going to have to try to get to the bottom of. Who is this really that's having this experience? Because that's the Yetzias Mitzrayim, leaving our imagined state and returning to reality the way that it is, the grace of the wisdom that creates that allows you to take your next breath. That one. That's the one you should worship. It's really that simple. And so everything else is stories upon stories, chidus and mishalim, trying to explain to you different realities that you might interact with in order to gain a deeper experience. That's it. Nothing to be afraid of, nothing to run away from. If you don't like it, drop it and create a different thought. And so humanity needs to go back to that level of simplicity. Humanity needs to understand that level of simplicity, because that's the only reality. That's the reality you were born with. Every other reality was created for you by somebody who didn't really know your nature, who didn't really know how terribly that thought, that concept, that idea is going to serve you. And so the simplicity is always there. The simplicity can never leave, because that's the one that's sustaining everything else. All the stories, the chidus, the mishalim, the remozim, they're all there in order to allow those of us who are not mature enough, who are not emotionally regulated enough, to be able to participate, to be able to one day realize the truth, to be able to gain the vessels, to gain the understandings, to recognize that the one who makes them breathe has a specific nature. And his nature must be worshipped. It must be adhered to, because if not, then things are going to go wrong. That's just life. That's just how everybody is, how everything always was. And his nature needs to be understood very, very deeply, because his nature is very subtle, more subtle than all the other animals. And so the amount of intelligence expected of us is big. And the way to receive intelligence is to have an appetite for life. And the way to receive an appetite for life is to have a healthy environment. And the way to have a healthy environment is to have wisdom. And so it goes in circles. And this is why the Pasuk says, Yoiv chachma lachakimin. He gives wisdom to those who are wise. Those who are wise will know that they will sacrifice everything just to create the conditions so that wisdom can grow. And when wisdom will grow, then they will be able to create an even better environment so wisdom can grow even more. And that's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate purpose. That's the reason there is Klal Yisrael, is to remind the world that there is a real way to do this. It doesn't have to hurt. There's a real way to do this. And this is what this night is about, is connecting to that real way to do this, is realizing that there's something more that we can experience. And so let's look a little bit on the Haggada. I'm going to go through just to give a little taste. So first we have the Kaira. The Kaira has, according to the Arizal, it has the 6 little plates. The Zroya, the Beitze, the Morer, the Charesus, the Karpas, and the Chazeres. Now, all these have meanings, and these relate back to the Midas. So, the Midas, there's 6 Midas that are called Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, from the Kabbalah, from the Eitz Chaim. And these are what maneuver within man, what create man's desires or create man's fears. And so whenever man is going to be manipulated emotionally, it's going to be through these 6 midas. And whatever man is going to heal, and he's going to allow himself to be removed from the manipulation, he's going to be working with these midas and finding what's called the divine midas. The divine midas, the Eitz Chaim, is the tree of life, because if we have those midas clean, the way that they were designed, we can understand them, then only we can protect ourselves. If we don't understand them, then we can't protect ourselves, because there are needs that we have that we don't understand. And so there's the needs that are emotional, that are the first 3, that are called Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes. So there's the kindness. The kindness goes to a person's need to share, a person's need to unite, because we're all one in source, and so that makes us kind by nature. So when we realize our source, we should become automatically kind, because everybody is kind to himself. That's the nature of how we were created. And the bigger we define that self, the more we are kind to everybody that is within that self. And so the purpose is that we should realize kindness by all of us realizing that Hashem Echad Ishmo Echad. By realizing that everything is included in that unity. And so we have to be kind to everything and to everyone and to every situation. And that kindness builds the world. That kindness allows the world to grow. That's called Olam Chesed Yiboneh. And then there's the Gvura, which is the discipline, the principles, the rules, which allow for distinction. So we wouldn't be able to be created as individuals. We wouldn't be able to have individual experiences if there wasn't a midah of Gevurah, if there wasn't a midah of Tzimtzum, that we each have our own vessel. And this vessel is what gives us access to the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So each one has his own vessel so that he can receive based on his measure, according to the sensitivity of his heart. The more sensitive he has a sensitive heart, the more he can realize the mercy of the one who created him. Because if the one who created him can have a heart and can create a heart that has so much mercy, then obviously the source of that mercy is much more powerful and much more merciful than that heart. So the heart is a tool for realizing mercy, if the heart has mercy. And so each person has his own vessel, has his own heart, and in accordance he realizes the kindness of the Creator. And now, in order to create this, there had to be a restriction, there had to be a difference between the individuals. And so this is the midah of Tzimtzum, midah of Gevurah. And it requires us to be able to shiur, to be able to realize a discipline of coexistence. That yes, we are important, we are here, we are everything, and life should cater to us. But at the same time, so is the next guy, so is the guy after him. And so that has to be taken into consideration when we want to create a reality, we want to create a society that works based on the truth. The truth is the middle ground that contains them both, and that's called Tiferes. The middle ground that contains them both is the truth. The truth meaning that sometimes we have to have restrictions, but in general, even the restrictions have to come from a place of kindness. Everything should be motivated by kindness. And that's the truth. And so that's the middle. And in that middle is where the Arizal wants us to put the morar. Because that's exactly what we lost. We lost that ability to tell where we need to be kind and where we need to be restrictive, where we need to be disciplined. And this is what causes the bitterness in our life. Because this goes straight back to our organs and it creates an imbalance. It creates acid in our liver because we're getting frustrated, because we're misunderstanding, because we don't have the right balance. And then our experience starts deteriorating. And then we have even less confidence because we're not feeling comfortable. And then it just impacts every area of our life. And so that balance, when it goes out of balance, that's called morar. And why did it happen? Because the chesed and the gevura, which is the fear and the love, created bondage, created misunderstanding of reality based on events, based on experiences that are stuck within our nature, within our reality, within our way of thinking, because we've forgotten ourselves. We've forgotten who's the king. We've forgotten who we're serving. We've forgotten what's the purpose. We've forgotten the one who makes us breathe. And we're worshiping something else. We're somewhere else. We're busy with some other thing that in our imagination now became more important than the one who makes us breathe. His intelligence is put aside. His way of what he decided life should be is going to take hold. We're going to put that on hold for a minute, and we're going to be busy with something that's not real. something that's in the past, something that's not here, something that we want, we need, we should have had, we shouldn't have had, but we have chametz there. We haven't processed. And so that's the source of bitterness. That's the source of not being fully available to the experience. And so we're in Mitzrayim. Now we have issues. Now we got complications within our system because the information is not clean. We're not experiencing directly. And then the lower half, the charoises, the karpas, and the chazeres, they relate to our habits. The habits that we've created from the past as we go through it, and the habits that we create because we want a certain future. We commit ourselves to projects at certain times in our life that could be projects of years. And who knows, the person going through the project might not even want to go through that project anymore. And then we're just stuck in it because we created something. We created something with the midas hanetzach. We created a future not based on the true understanding of what it means to be us. And so a more intelligent version of us is going to suffer because a less intelligent version of us put us in a prison. And so all these things have to be taken into consideration as we go about life. Life is very real and it's precious. And our beliefs and our decisions make a big difference. And so now here again, the chazeres is the midas hayisoid. The chazeres is what's actually going to come into reality based on your past and your future, based on your habits. So this again is where the bitterness comes. So every time that we get stuck in the past, or we're afraid of the future, or when we get stuck on things that we love or on things that we hate, then we cause ourselves bondage, we cause ourselves Mitzrayim. We go back into a world of kishuf, a world that lives only in our mind. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And so we have to come back to a place that's not bitter. And this bitter is a medicine. It's a medicine. It is bitter, but nature teaches us that a lot of important medicines come in a bitter taste to show that in order to correct the divergences that we have with reality, the pain, the suffering is what shows us the way, is what guides us, is what changes our responses to reality to be more accurate, to be more sensitive, to be more in tune. So this is all part of a process of correction. This is why when Avram Avinu said, I want to be the one, I want to be the father, the patriarch of a nation, of a reality that's going to create the proper human being, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, they're going to suffer then. If that's what they want to be, then there's going to be a price for that. The price is that they're going to have to go through a training program, a medicine that's going to be bitter. And Avram Avinu was ready to pay that price because he knew the ultimate reward. He could still see what he's paying for. We don't see what we're paying for, so we say, why are we paying so much? But Avram Avinu saw what we're paying for, and therefore he said that the price is right. He wants it. He wants in. And so his wisdom outshines ours, and therefore we trust his decision. So here we see how through the midos we create ourselves a bad experience. So what's this going to cause? It's going to cause us to one day realize how we function, how our midos work, so that we will no longer suffer. So that we will know how to interact with each other and create a better situation on this planet. And this is within our power. Just like we can create this one, we created any other one. We shouldn't be enslaved to any other generation. We should be realizing the wisdom of the truth so that we can recognize what's really best for humanity. And as long as we don't know that, then we are enslaved to others because they knew better than us. And then we should follow what they say because we don't know any better. We don't know what we're doing. And so Chazal didn't have Nevuah. When Mashiach will come, there will be Nevuah. And a lot of the things that Chazal, a lot of the excerpts of Chazal are going to change based on what's best for now, what's true for now. But until we don't have Nevuah, En Bezdin Yochel Levatel Divrei Bezdin Chaveiroi Elam Ken Godel Meni B'Chochmeh B'Minyan. So there needs to be wisdom in the world. As long as there won't be wisdom in the world, we're going to just have to copy the previous generation because we don't understand what we're doing. How do we know what we can drop? How do we know what's really important? We don't even know the first thing about what we're doing. So it's going to require a deep study. It's going to require an understanding. So we can understand the goal. We can understand the purpose. And it's not being hidden from us any longer. Nobody's holding it from us, except we're not digging enough, or we're not digging in the right direction. And that's based on the midas. The direction is all dependent on the midas. Everybody will see in the Torah a different Torah based on their midas. That's what it means, Shivim Panim La Torah. And so we have to clear our midas in order for the medicine to stop being bitter. Because the bitter medicine comes through our midas. That's why it tastes so bitter. It's because we have the midas that create resistance between people, that create difficulty. It creates competition. It doesn't create happy, loving coexistence. That's not the programming that's running around these days. So that has to change, because that's toxic to humanity. That's causing us to have less fuel, less energy, less interest. And when we have that, we have less wisdom, less access to wisdom. So that's on the Kaira. Then we have the three matzahs. The three matzahs represent the sichlium. The sichlium is the part that thinks. So before we were talking about the emotions, but what's running the emotions is the part of us that thinks. The part of us that thinks is called keser, chachma, and bina. Or sometimes it's called chachma, bina, and das, depending on what's being activated. And so the keser is the source, is the beginning of a thought, is the beginning of inspiration. The chachma is when it starts coming in already, and it's now collecting information. All the information that's within you is called chachma. This is the information you have access to. And then the bina is your understanding of it. Is how's that relevant to you? What does that mean to you? That's your understanding, and that goes to the heart. That creates the emotion. So through the bina come emotions. And when the understanding says that there's something hostile, then the emotions turn against reality. And that's when the emotions cause damage. That's when the emotions start going into defense mode. And so when we create a reality that doesn't have any hostility, then there will be no defense mode. There will be no negative emotions. There will be no demons. There will be no bad spirits. All these things will disappear from the earth. So that's the intention of man. And so this tree is called the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. So says Reb Tzodok, when we say Melech Malchei Hamlochim, what does it mean? We say HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the king that is the king of kings. What does that mean? So he says, Melochim is the Malchus. Malchus is the manifested reality. That's the Melochim. Those are all the kings. Then there's the Malchei Hamlochim, the kings over the kings. Who are the kings over the kings? They are the emotions. The emotions are kings over everything that's manifested, because they are the ones that drive what's going to take place with them. And the Melech, that's the Malchei Hamlochim, is the Moichin, is the Seichel, is the Keser Chachma Bina that we just described. The intelligence that's experiencing it, he's the king that is a king over the kings of kings. He's the Melech of the Malchei Hamlochim. The intelligence is the Melech over the Malchei, the emotions, of the Melochim, of the manifested reality. And so this is how Reb Tzodok explains the Eitz Chaim, where you can find it within yourself, where you can understand what's being discussed. We're discussing your source, that intelligence that makes you breathe. That's what's coming through 10 different levels until it becomes you. And that intelligence is more important than everything manifest, than everything you can possibly realize with the five senses. Anything you can see, hear, touch, smell, or taste can never come close to the value of the intelligence that lives within. And that intelligence can never be perceived by the five senses, because it's not a goof, and it doesn't live in a goof, and it doesn't live in things that live in a goof. It's way, way, way beyond that. It's way, way higher than that. It comes from beyond the angels, beyond the heavens, beyond everything is the intelligence that creates all. And from that, He gave us a little taste. And that little taste is an infinite taste, if we can open our mouth big enough. Harchav picha v'amaleu. As big as you'll make your vessel to receive wisdom, that's how much wisdom he'll give you, because he has unlimited. And the only thing he wants to do with it is share. That's the goal. That's the purpose. Why did we create all these individual vessels? So that he can share wisdom with us. That's how he looks at us. That's how he sees us. When we behave the way we do in 2020, it doesn't seem reasonable. He seems quite foolish to want to share wisdom with us. But when we look the way that Avram Avinu looked, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu enjoys the conversation, whatever that means. For him, that's good enough. For him, that's a purpose. And so, obviously, we can understand from that, we can surmise from that Avram Avinu's experience was quite deep and quite phenomenal. And so, we want to strive to realize those levels of wisdom, because that's when man becomes realized. That's when man becomes real. That's when the purpose can start making sense. Until then, we're just evolving to that point. We're preparing. We're creating a kisei. We're creating a throne upon which somebody will eventually sit. Who's going to be that somebody? The one who will realize wisdom. The one who will recognize what happened to us and tell us the story. That's the one who will get to sit on that throne. And so, here we go to the Simone al-Seder. The Simone al-Seder is a Seder of preparing a person to become nirtza, to become ready to receive a pure consciousness, a pure awareness. So the nirtza means that he's clean, that he's out of Mitzrayim, that he has no story that's standing between him and his creator. All the stories have been worked out. Everything is okay. So for a person to get that place, so it starts Kadesh, right? He has to become holy. Irchatz, he has to wash. Washing the hands always relates to cleaning the spheres. If those who've learned Sefer Yetzira with us, the 10 fingers represent the 10 spheres, the 10 midas. So when you wash the hands, you wash the fingers, you're washing off your midas, you're washing off your perception from all the bondage, from all the stories, from all the history, from all the whatevers. You're going back to the simplicity of who allows me to breathe, who created this mechanism called breathing. That's the one. That's the neshama. The neshama lives in your ability to have a neshima. Everything else, your imagination created. Run away. It's Pesach, no chometz. Back to simplicity. Back to what you know for certain, which is nothing. Ayin. What do you know for certain? Nothing. Why do we need a whole Torah to tell us to know nothing? Because by the time the Torah came around, people were telling you so many things that you were never going to remember. So the Torah comes and tells you, come back to nothing. Because what do you know for sure? Nothing. And that nothing is everything. That nothing gives you access to life. Life happens because somebody else created it, not you. Stop pretending like the steering wheel is in your hands. That's nothing. And then allow life to happen. If you need something, go for it. If you want something, find it. But don't fight with life. Life is not yours to fight with. So that's irchatz. Clear yourself off from your stories. Karpas. Here we take a piece of yerek, something that grows, a plant, and we dip it in salt water. And this is starting already to talk about a procedure. So the plant represents the body. The body is a tree, kodem etz hasodeh. So now we take the body and we're making it uncomfortable. We're putting it into salt water. We're putting it into melach. Melach represents that the world needs the world needs to go through din, the midas hadin. So that's karpas, that's already preparing for a procedure. Yachatz relates to taking the middle matzah, which is Levi, and Levi represents the midas adin. So we take the midas adin and we're going to play with it. We're going to fool it a little bit. We're going to put away a portion of it for later. And for now, we're going to pretend that life doesn't really have an exact way. Life is confusing. Let's see everybody, based on their emotions, what they're going to choose to believe, what they're going to choose to do. Let's bring out people's natures a little more so that we can see who wants to do the right thing and who is pretending to do the right thing because he has to and he's causing a lot of damage. And this is what the Pasuk says in Tehillim, where it says, Exile lo yoven ezois. Exile, somebody who doesn't understand the master plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, doesn't understand this. And what is this? Bifroach rishon kemo yosef, when Rishoim, when evil people, they sprout like grass. Vaitzitzu kapay aleyovan, and all the people who do crooked things, they're coming up, they're popping up everywhere. Why? Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow this? Why does all this evil get a place to come out and rule humanity? And the answer is Lisham damadeyad. So they can show their true colors, so they can show what they really stand for, so they can show what's really in their hearts, and that's going to cause nature to take care of them, so we don't have to. If they were going to be scared and they were not going to do what they really think and what they really want to do, then nature would never judge them, because nature only judges based on a person's actions. But if we're going to give them a place where we're going to say, you know what, God is angry, you can be angry, you can do what you want to do, show us what you want to do. And those who want to be angry and those who want to be violent and those who want to control, now God lets, now they have permission. This is even what he wants. And why is this? Why do we let them show their true colors? Lisham damadeyat, so that afterwards we can see who is wise and who is pretending because they're afraid of consequences, because they're afraid of showing who they really are and what they really stand for. And so a lot of negative strains, a lot of violent people, a lot of violent families have been eliminated from history with this system. The evil reigned supreme, but they were killing each other. They were wiping each other out. But unfortunately, a lot of kind people lost their life in the struggle too. And so the beliefs are now on the side of the evil. And this is what comes next, is that after Yachatz, how we're going to return, how we're going to come back to our former glory is Magid. Magid is a Lashon Haggada, to say, to talk. And Magid specifically means what type of talk? Soidis. It's a Lashon of pulling from another world, Haggada. And so it's a way to learn secrets about life, to understand the world. And this is what the Torah was given for. It's the Tfus Ma'aseh Bereshis, meaning you want to understand the world, you want to understand what was created. Look in the Torah, that's where it's written, what was created. That's where you'll find the truth. That's where you'll find reality, if you know how to dig. So, Magid is learning, understanding. And then comes another Rachza. Now comes a whole new type of washing. Now that we've learned, now that we understand, now we can really see how far we have gone from the truth, how much we've tortured ourselves for no reason other than our imagination was stuck in an illusion, in a fake reality. And so now comes a deep, deep rachza. And then finally, moitzi matzah. Now we can bring out the matzah. Remember we said the chometz is when things are still stuck in our imagination, when we're creating from the past. So now we've done this work, we've learned, we've washed, and now we can bring out matzah. Now we can create with the 22 letters, with the chita, we can create thoughts, we can create concepts, we can create beliefs that are helpful, that are going to guide us towards the truth. And then as we start doing this, morar, the emotions start waking up. The heart starts waking up. Now we start feeling. For all those years that we couldn't feel, now we feel. All those years we had to stop ourselves from feeling. If we would have felt, we would have collapsed. There was so much pain, there was so much confusion, there was no way. But now our imagination has been cleaned, our beliefs are being restored, and now we start feeling what's in there. And then it says koirach, this is the Eitz of Hillel HaZoken. Hillel HaZoken says, while it hurts, while you feel the pain, bring in some other stuff to make it, to relieve the bitterness. And what are you going to bring in? You bring in the matzah. You keep reminding yourself of your new beliefs. You keep reminding yourself of your new understandings. You're not falling back into the past. And you bring mit your Pesach. The Korban Pesach was a sign that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the Midas HaRachamim, can give a person a second chance. Can take a person above nature. And this is why we share the Korban Pesach now, and the Zodiac starts a new cycle. And the Korban Pesach represents the Zodiac, it represents the Lamb, and we're transcending the Lamb. We don't want to be just tzoin. We want to be bonim lamoka. We want to be intelligent. We want to understand. We want to be part of this. We want to do things and say things that are in line with the goal. We don't want to just survive the process. And so this is the koirach, when a person realizes that he wants wisdom, that he wants to grow, then the bitterness is not so bitter, the bitterness becomes sweet. And then shulchan aruch, then we can feast. Then we can finally be. Then we can finally understand. Then we can control our emotions through our thoughts, through our beliefs. They can make us happy. It doesn't matter anymore what the story is. It doesn't matter anymore what our senses tell us, because our thoughts have become more powerful. Our intelligence is more in charge. And then, tzofun, we bring back that old gevura, that half of the gevura that we had to put away because we were going through this process and we couldn't really stand up for ourselves and we couldn't really know what's true and what's not true, what's real and what's not real, what to fight for and what to let go. Now we can have our gevuras back. Now we can stand up for ourselves. Because now we know the truth. And this is why we say after tzofun, we say, Shvoi chamascha lagoyim asher lo yidaucha. We can only say that when we know. If we don't know, then chas v'chalila, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bring his chema. But only when we already understand what we're really aiming for, we already understand what side we need to be on, and we've gotten to be on that side, and we're helping humanity, and we're not hurting ourselves or others, then it comes a time, why? So that we can finally get to the ultimate destination, so humanity can be redeemed. Humanity can only be redeemed when all of us will prefer peace over everything else, because we'll understand that peace is an environment for wisdom, and without wisdom life is useless. And so this is something that humanity is going to have to realize, and Klal Yisrael is going to bring that realization, because we've been worshipping wisdom since the beginning of time, and we've had wise people like the world has never seen. The only problem was they didn't have who to talk to. They were so wise, nobody understood what they had to say. And so we had to create a family so that people will be able to get to a place, to get to a destination where life becomes worth living in a way that cannot be described to our current imagination. Our imagination is stuck in the past, and the past it never saw anything like it. And so that's what the Pasuk says, Ein l'ras elekim zelesecha yasel amechak eloi, that somebody who is searching for wisdom because he's intelligent enough and sensitive enough to realize that there must be a way, that there must be a purpose of why we suffer and how we turn off suffering. And so he searches for wisdom, he searches for truth. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give him exactly what he searches for, because that desire already created that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to give it to him. That's the nature of our power, is that when we create a desire, it has to be fulfilled somehow. As long as it's not fulfilled, it stays in our system and it bothers us. And the more powerful the desire becomes, the more it doesn't allow us to live the rest of our lives. And so all this has to do with cleaning ourselves from all chometz, to be able to really be real. And for that we need the proper environment. For that we need to create a world that understands the truth. And that's what's coming. And so then we finally get to Beirach. This is going to be the first time people are actually going to bench. Until now, they were saying the words because they had to. Maybe they felt a little emotion, maybe not. But benching is when your body feels so good from what's taking place that it just has to bless. It doesn't have any other choice. It has to express itself. And that's always when we have a mitzvah from the Torah Shebechsav. It means that mitzvah is within nature. It means that it's something that your nature should do automatically. The imagination shouldn't have to help it. It should come from within. If it's not coming from within, then Chazal will push us to do it anyway, because otherwise we'll lose touch with what should be. But this is something that should be so inspired that Berach, we just want to bench. And that brings us to Hallel, which is the goal of why we're created. That Koil Hanshama Tahalel Yah, that every moment, for every breath, you will be thankful, you will be grateful. So Koil Hanshama Tahalel Ka means that each breath is grateful to the one who designed breathing. Because each breath recognizes that somebody realized that it's important that that breath should take place. And it's grateful for that reality. It's grateful for that chance to exist. That is not something that we want to do because it's good for God. It's not something we want to do because it's good for the Creator. It's something we want to do because it's the most healthy thing a person could do while he's in his body. And it's not only healthy physically, it's healthy on all levels. It's healthy all the way to his relationship with the Creator himself. It even repairs that. That's how healthy it is. And so when we can get to that state, we want nothing else. This is why David HaMelech was always after it. All his tilim was only to get him to a state where he can say that last pasuk, Koil Hanshama Tahalel Yah, that everything, every breath is a new realization of the wonder of life, of the fact that this is even possible, on the fact that someone somewhere can create blood that thinks, and he can create it so well that that blood doesn't even notice it's thinking. So that's a wonder. That's a pele. And when we forget that pele, we lose access to the divine. We lose access to the one who created us. Because he is that pele. That's why it's called oise pele. Loise nefloes gedoles levadoi. That's his power. That he does things that are pele v'fele. You can't understand. Your mind boggles. And it doesn't help you nothing. You can boggle at it for 70 years and you didn't even make a dent in what it means. And so that's the koyach of the nefloes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of what he created. And then finally, we get the nirtza. You want it to be a person that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is happy with, you want it to be a person HaKadosh Baruch Hu is proud of, then this is the process, this is the procedure. Renew yourself. Tischadesh kaneshe ni'iraychi. Zacharti lo chesed nu'irayich. You have to wake up that freshness. You have to wake up that newness, as if you were just created. This is the first time you're breathing, and you're looking at your body, and you're looking at the world, and you're just in awe. You're in wonder. What just happened? How could this be? That's the only real response to reality. All the other responses we've practiced. That's why we know how to do them. But they're coming from our imagination. So based on memory, we've decided, okay, I've seen this so many times, I don't care. That's only the imagination that doesn't care. But if we forget our past and we see such a reality, the only legitimate response is complete awe, shock. How could this be? Can't be. And so this is the state within which these people lived. The prophets lived in such a stage. And so as soon as there was some type of stimulation, they would listen to music or anything that would make them happier, they would just go into the collective. They would be so pleased in their experience that the higher intelligence could communicate with them. They could actually understand the intention of the ultimate purpose. And that means that they're tapping into a future humanity. They were tapping into the future. They were tapping into a reality that's only going to be available to us when humanity is different. But these people managed to tap into it ahead of time and to tell us what that looks like and to tell us what we're doing wrong, why we're not there yet. So that's Nirtzah, to realize the truth. And so the truth accepts you then. Then you can join the truth. And we see, for example, the excitement here. I'm looking after Kiddush, we make a Shechianu. So we see the excitement of how these people looked at surviving to a new season, to a new cycle. We take life for granted. Until recently, nobody ever even thought that the fact that he is alive is something that he might have to be grateful for, because why wouldn't I be alive? I was alive yesterday. But these people would make a bracha, shechianu, a realization that someone, somewhere decided that I'm still important and therefore I'm still here. Shechianu v'kimanu v'gianu lezman hazeh. How do we know? Because I'm here, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So the imagination says, well, he was here yesterday, he's here now. But the seichel, the intelligence, knows, no, he shouldn't have been here in the first place. It doesn't even make sense that he's here. You're already taking it for granted? And so, when there comes a new cycle, it comes a new time, it's shechianu v'kimanu v'gianu lezman hazeh. I'm here. Am I not here? Everything that is because something made it be that way. You didn't make it be that way. You didn't make yourself be here because you didn't make yourself get born. So it has nothing to do with you. So recognize it, acknowledge it. Because then you'll have access to the experience. If not, it's just going to pass you by. And what did you gain? What did you have? What do you go away with? And so that was a depth of experience that was real to them. It was real to them, and this is why they give us the brachas. They know that we're going to be suffering. They know we're going to be broken. They know we're probably not going to think what we're saying. But maybe one time we'll think. Maybe we'll think a little more the next. Maybe one generation won't think, and the other generation won't think, but maybe the generation after will think. So at least give them something. Let their intelligence grow. Let them ask. And this is what we see by the Leil Seder, that we're creating an environment for the children to ask. We're doing funny things, so children should ask, because the goal is, if the child will ask, then we can tell him important things. If he won't be interested, then he won't know these important things. He won't go in so deep into his imagination, because now when he's young, he's still writing clearly. He's still really recording everything, all the details. And so, this is no different than what we do all year round. All year round, we also do funny things. And we do funny things, so the adult should ask. But the adult doesn't ask. The adult has gotten so used to whatever is happening that he doesn't even ask. He just does. Okay, so what do I need to do? And that defeats the whole purpose. The purpose is to gain intelligence. The purpose is to know your experience. The purpose is to become something. It's not to do something. The doing is supposed to make you become. And so the questioning is what's going to cause the doing to become something more. We can't ben shoyl. We need to ask. You see funny things? You should be asking. That's what Yetzias Mitzrayim means. Why are you letting life just happen? There are funny things. Ask questions. Try to understand. Who decided? Who says? Who has the authority to say? How do we know it matches what the Creator has to say? These are legitimate questions that need to be asked. Because otherwise we stay in Mitzrayim. Otherwise we just copy the past. And the past wasn't pleasant. So why would the future be any more pleasant? And so, Shechianu, wake up. You're still here. You can still do something. You can still change something. You can still make something or think something or ask something. Because now is the time. This is the place. And this is the purpose. This is the reason for all of it. And here the Zohar speaks about Pekida Basado, how important it is to discuss Yetzias Mitzrayim, that even if a person knows already and even if a person understands already, we have to talk about it. And this is because we want to create emotions, we want to create mind patterns, we want to create thoughts, we want to create beliefs, we want to create. Creating means expressing. If we're not expressing, then we're not creating. And so that's what Zohar says. Even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows already everything, He doesn't need you to remind Him. He was there. And you already learned it last year and you remember it. But when you're saying it, you're creating new angels. When you're saying it, you're thinking about it again. When you're saying it, you might even dream about it. And that's going to affect your life. That's going to affect your nefesh. That's going to affect your experience. So that's what the Zohar says. You have to be mefarsim nisim and to cause people to think in patterns that allow them to come close to the Creator, allow them to embrace, to realize that pain comes from people doing wrong and pleasure comes from people doing right. That's all there is to it. There's no guessing work, there's no superstition, no segulas, no nonsense. We just have to do what's right to life, and life will do what's right to us. And that's the concept of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That you see the Egyptians, because of their behaviors, because of their trying to manipulate reality, reality paid them back. Reality didn't leave the score open. There's a way of how this works. There's a cheshbon to everything, and things end up in their place. Then we have the holach ma'anya. Holach ma'anya da'chol ha'vason of Mitzrayim. So ho is the letter hey, hey aleph. And the letter hey is the Shechina, the letter hey is the bottom. And this is the Lachmanya, the manifested reality, the Shechina, the one that we're experiencing, that's the Lachmanya. And that's why we say at the end, we say, Yashat Hocho, Lashon Haba B'Yerushalayim. Next year we shouldn't be eating Lachmanya. We should be eating bread, we should be eating, even if it's matzah, that should be a symbol of freedom, a symbol of Cheres. And so now we're creating a memory for things of Cheres. But we want to eat the bread of Cheres, we want to be free. Ashatu Avde, now we're still slaves. Lashon Haba B'nei Choirin. Now we're slaves. We're slaving away. And even worse, we're a slave without a master. We're slaving away for nothing. For something that doesn't exist, for a phantom. For just a collection of ideas over thousands of years that didn't even make sense in the first place, most of them. But somebody found a way to make money, somebody found a way to gain power, and we're still stuck with it. And so this is something that we can only recognize when humanity's midas will be the way that they need to be. People have tried to create collectives, people have tried to force other people to participate into different arrangements. And it's never going to work by force because it has to come from within. It has to be motivated by the midas. If the midas are wrong, trying to force negative midas, trying to force people with negative midas to coexist is only going to cause pain, is only going to cause suffering. And so the midas have to come first. The midas have to be straightened out before we can even think what a society is supposed to look like. But Ashata Avdi, now we're slaves. We're slaves to who? To nothing. But Lashon Haba B'nei Choirin. Next year, we're going to be free from nothing. We're going to be worshipping nothing. We're going to be realizing nothing. Nothing is going to become our friend. So that relationship with nothing is going to change. Because nothing is the unknown. Nothing is the infinite. Nothing is the difference between us and the Creator. All that area that we don't understand. That's nothing. And so in that nothingness we can project fear, we can project demons, we can project beliefs that don't serve us. Or in that nothingness we can project divinity. And then we can receive from that divinity because it happens to be the truth. Within that nothingness there is divinity. Because that nothingness creates everything that is. And as we become wiser, that nothingness becomes more and more defined. We start realizing that maybe it's not so nothing after all. Maybe it's more than everything. And so here we have the questions. So you see how the child is looking at things and asking about things. Why are we doing this and why are we doing that? And this shows you intelligence. This shows you what intelligence means. This shows you Yetzias Mitzrayim. There will not be Yetzias Mitzrayim without intelligence. It will not happen because there will not be Midas Toivos without intelligence. And so the intelligence we're talking about here is not the intelligence you can learn in a university. It's not the intelligence that you can pay somebody to teach you. It's intelligence that's intrinsic to your soul, to your neshama, to your heart. And that sensitivity can only be gained through dedication, through caring, through trying to care about humanity and trying to understand why somebody would create such a situation in the first place for people. And so this requires an individual dedication. That's the only way to do it. And this is why Chazal teach us that the Torah doesn't go by heritage. Every single person can decide to dedicate himself to becoming wise, and it will work. And it will be so big, ad kedei kach, that a mamzer Talmid Chacham is bigger than a Kohen Gadol Haaretz. In the eyes of the truth, the mamzer that came out from an illegitimate union, if he becomes wise, he's going to be more important, more chashuv, than the Kohen Gadol who goes lifnei v'nifnim, but he's Haaretz, but he doesn't really understand the truth. Because that wisdom is going to take him to a level, is going to take him to a place where he's going to be beyond distinction. It won't matter the vessel he lives in, because with his wisdom he's not there anymore. He's not in the vessel, he's in the collective. And therefore, what difference does it make how he got here? He's here. And he knows it. And he understands. And so the wisdom is open for everybody, and that's the purpose. But we have to ask the right questions. We have to learn from how they tried to get children to ask questions, that the adults too need to ask questions. The adults too, if they want to be intelligent, they need to start understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it. They need to at least learn, dedicate time to know what was the message, what was the purpose, where are we heading with this, so that we can help along, so that we can do something to make that reality come faster. So then comes the answer. We were slaves, and here we see how even Chazal were sitting and discussing the nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim. They each had their individual Yetzias Mitzrayim, because everybody that's born into a society when there's no Beis Hamikdash needs to have Yetzias Mitzrayim in order to become a Chacham, in order to understand what's happening. Otherwise he's stuck in the culture he was born with. Like we know for Reb Akiva. Reb Akiva was 40 years in the culture of the Amei Haaretz, of the general population, which meant that he didn't understand the first thing about what's real and what's not real. But his Yetzias Mitzrayim happened over 24 years of realizing a certain truth that changed everything for him. And so the same the rest of them. Then we have the four sons. And here again we see how they're expected to ask, and if they don't ask, we're expected to make them ask. We're expected to create a situation that's going to raise their curiosity, that they're going to want to know, because then it will go in, and then maybe something inside of them will wake up. We want to start waking up our children from an early age to look around and realize things, truth about life, to realize what's really taking place, and not simply to take what others have created, what others have said, what others have done at face value. And to live based on that. Then here we go a little faster. V'hisha amda. This speaks about the promise that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Avram Avinu. So now we're going back to that beginning. The beginning, Avram Avinu wanted to see a different life, wanted to see a different world, wanted to create a different reality within the human soul, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu made him a promise. So he somehow found his way to merge with the collective consciousness, with the collective imagination that creates all, which is called the Shekhinah, and he managed to get a promise that from his children will come that nation that's going to create his vision, that's going to manifest the reality that he had in mind. And so this is the Haftacha, V'hi, and that Haftacha, She'amda Lavaseni, is standing for our parents, V'lonu, and also for us. So this is something that we still rely on. we know that Klal Yisrael can never vanish from the face of the earth, no matter how many have tried, because they're grounded in the roots of Avram Avinu, who received the promise from the Almighty Himself that He needs these people, otherwise the world's not worth it for Him. He needs somebody to talk to. He needs somebody that can understand His wisdom, because only that person who understands that wisdom is going to release the right energies from his heart so that the world can find peace, so that the world can return to its former glory. And so therefore, we must have this. This needs to happen. There's not just a single one. Every generation. Why every generation? Some generations nobody tried to kill us. But in every generation, they believed things that are contrary to what's real, contrary to who we are, contrary to what it means to be human. And so to that extent, they caused us direct damage. They tried to eliminate what we stand for from the universe, even if it was unintentional. They could have thought that there isn't anything better, but there is. And the only reason a person would think that there isn't anything better, the only reason a person would assume that this is okay, that it could be that such a creator that can create so much would create something like this and he would be okay with it, is because of a lack of intelligence. Is because the imagination has gotten so used to life that it's not really observing what's happening. It's not realizing truth. And so as soon as a person looks at the truth face to face, he will realize that it cannot be, it's not possible that this is what the Creator had in mind. And therefore, we must look for a different manifestation, we must look for different settings that are more in line with our nature, that are more in line with what was intended for this creature. And as long as we don't do that, we're violating its truth. We're part of the people who want to eliminate truth from the world, even if it's unintentional. Each one of us is confirming certain realities to the people around them. And those realities, to the extent that they're not in line with nature, they're causing damage, and vice versa. To the extent that we direct ourselves to be more in line with nature, then we're causing healing. Then we're helping the collective heal from the wounds of history and come back to a healthy state, which is what we all need in order to heal, in order to come together. So it's this haftacha that protected us in all these generations, in all these places, in all these beliefs and emotions that contradict the very message that somebody cares about us and somebody's compassionate, and that's why He created us and He wants to share with us and He cherishes us and He respects us, and all those messages. All this has been contradicted, but this promise is what kept it alive. And the one who gives us intelligence teaches us the right intelligence at the right time, in order to protect ourselves, in order to save ourselves. And it starts off with Lavan Arami. Lavan Arami was a big Kishav Machi, was a big sorcerer, and he manipulated Yaakov. He took advantage of Yaakov by doing all kinds of tricks, and Yaakov ended up working for him for 21 years. And so Lavan just wanted to use Yaakov's spiritual power. Yaakov was pure. Yaakov had so much spiritual power that wherever he was, he brought a bracha, he brought blessing. So Lavan wanted to abuse that for his own interests, so that he can have more, so that he can make money. And in that way, he wanted to eliminate what Yakov Avinu came to share with the world. Yakov Avinu had a message. He was carrying the seed that came through Avram and through Yitzchak, and he had to create a life, he had to create a purpose, he had to create a destiny. And instead of him focusing on that destiny, instead of him focusing on what the world needs, he's busy working for Lavan. He's busy sitting in the cold and in the heat to protect somebody else's sheep. And so Yaakov Avinu had a tachlis from all this, because those sheep, the life force that was in those sheep that he was shepherding, ended up being the neshamas that came back as Klal Yisrael in Mitzrayim. Ibnei Yisrael paru vayishutzu vayirbu vayatzmu moed moed. They were having many, many babies. They were being very fruitful, and they were bringing in those neshamas into upgrading it into the potential for an intelligent being, for somebody that can interact with life accurately. And in Mitzrayim they couldn't. And that's why they're called Ki'ibr b'mayimah. They were like still in the womb. And Mitzrayim was like their mother. Because Mitzrayim had this tremendous wisdom, but they themselves didn't understand how deep things go until Moshe Rabbeinu learned that wisdom and the wisdom that he got from his forefathers, and he understood that there is something beyond what Paroi understands that's making sure that even Paroi is kept in place. And when Moshe Rabbeinu accessed that level, he activated it. And when he activated that level came to save Klal Yisrael. And so for us all also, the reason we suffer is because we're in a low consciousness, we're in a low level of awareness, so we can't activate the deeper levels of intelligence that can save us from this mess. And so the deeper we go, the higher we can go, and this is why the priests would try to go deeper and deeper. The priests of each nation would try to be able to reach higher and higher states so that they can have control of the world. And when Klal Yisrael lost control of the world was headed down a deep cliff, because nobody understood the heights, nobody understood the depth of wisdom that was attained by the prophets in Klal Yisrael. There's no other nation that had this level of access. This is why it says, Magid Devorav LeYakov, Chikov v'mishpatav LeYisrael, le'osachein l'chol goy, v'mishpatim bal yedoim. Nobody else knows this tradition. Nobody else understands this reality the way that it's being described in the Torah. And therefore, it's our duty to awaken this wisdom so that we can understand what type of an environment to create, so that our Ovdei Hashem, our priests, whoever they might be, can go to the depth of understanding, can go to the depth of unity, and from there awaken an intelligence that can save us. Awaken an intelligence that knows the answers to our situation. Because all the intelligence is available. The question is, who's going to have the vessel to receive that level of intelligence? And for that vessel, we need an environment. And that was what the Beis HaMikdash provided. There's an environment for Kahanim to go to the depth of reality. And the ultimate moment of that was on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol would go lifnei v'lifnim, and he would see things that were not visible anywhere else, like we see by the story of Yishmael Kohen Gadol, where it says he sees the Creator, Kiviyachol, saying to Yishmael, Yishmael b'ni barcheinu, bench me, my son, bless me, give me a blessing so that I can come into the world with more intelligence, so that I can reside within my own kingdom. That's how Kiviyachol HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs us, needs our cooperation, so that we have the intelligence to bring him in, so that we can cause a environment to be created where intelligence can live, where the truth can reside. And that's a place where the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, can prosper, can flourish. So, Aram Yoeved Ovi Vayered Mitzrayim. Vayegesham V'sei Ma'ot. So that's Yaakov Avinu going into Mitzrayim, starting because of Yosef. And this has to do with the Midas HaYesod, that takes the imagination into Mitzrayim, B'msei Ma'ot, M'shnema B'shiv Nefesh Yod Osech Mitzrayimo. And then they go in there, they become used to the place, they become bigger as a nation, and then suddenly the Mitzrayim turn on them. And this is the nature of the imagination. So in the beginning, when we run after the imagination, it's our friend. It's trying to make our life nice. It's trying to give us more pleasures. It wants this for us and it wants that for us, and everything it sees it wants because it's so nice and it wants to help and it just wants you to have the best life you can possibly have. Because what else could it possibly want for you? But then suddenly it starts to hurt because I don't have this and I don't have that and I thought I wanted this and at the end I have that. And now the Mitzrayim are turning on the person. Once they're in already, once the person's already imagined all kinds of things and he's created bondage and he's created all kinds of kishuv within himself that are not allowing him to see reality, suddenly it becomes painful. Suddenly he's dragging with him all kinds of things that he doesn't even want anymore. And that's Vayirei Osana Mitzrim. Vayaninu, Kmo Sheneimar, Vayisim Alav Sar Misam Anoisa B'Siv Loisam. Now there is already a quota. In the beginning, he was making X amount of money, and everything was fine, sort of, until he saw he can make a little more and he wanted to make a little more. Now he's already making a decent amount, but boy, is it not enough. It's not even close anymore. Why? Because the quotas keep going up. We're in Mitzrayim. The imagination has no real limit where you need to be. Whatever it can get its hand on. If you're working so hard and you got here, why can't you work a little harder and get there? And then it keeps going. Whether it's money or it's anything else in life where the imagination starts dictating to life what needs to happen. And that's when the sorei misim, they start coming. Did you do this? Did you do that? Do you have what I asked from you? Did you deliver? Otherwise, what are you worth? What are you even here for? Who's talking? Who's saying this? There's nobody there. It's Mitzrayim. And this is the nature. It takes over. And then, then that's it. No time to think. I'm busy. I'm booked. Next 40 years I'm booked. You can make an appointment after that. And then, vanitzak el Hashem. Suddenly, something woke up. Hey, hang on. This can't be the way it works. What happened over here? Where did I fall asleep? Because I'm most certainly dreaming. That's the vanitzak. There's an awakening. And then, vayishma. There's a realization. The heart realizes something. And then it sees the suffering. Until then, it didn't even see the suffering. If you asked it, it says, I'm trying to create pleasure. What do you want from me? Get out of my way. Now suddenly, maybe it's not so pleasant. And that's after we scream, after we open up, after we recognize. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens and he realizes that the situation is no good. Now there's a new intelligence, there's a new chief in town. He says it's no good. He doesn't want to play anymore. Vayar sanyenu the precious derech eretz. People have no time for each other. Spouses, they don't have time for each other. They're busy. They were created for each other, for God's sake. But there's no time. The precious derech eretz. That's anyenu. We're poor. We don't have relationships. We don't have commitment. We don't have communication. We don't have emotional safety. Vayar elikim es bnei Yisrael, vayeda elikim. Now something woke up in him. Now he knew. V'samalei el abonim, suffering from the children. What did I create in my children while I was so busy? Where was I? Where are they? What happened over here? It's an awakening. It's Yetzias Mitzrayim. What did I do? What did they do? What's the relationship? What happened? When did this happen? Where was I? I was busy. I was working for somebody else. Who are you working for? I don't know. He's not here. It's not only we're working, you're always on a clock. There's never enough time. You're always behind schedule. Whose schedule? Nobody's. But you're behind, you can be certain of it. The nervous system wasn't designed for this. It doesn't want it. It can't. Even if it wants, it can't. It wasn't made to work like this. It's a human system. It was designed to have kavod, to have dignity, to have respect, to be catered to. That's what it's here for. And now it's serving deadlines. Whose deadlines? Who's dead? The one that's doing the work, that's the one who's dead. He's forgotten. שנאמר וגם ראיסיס הלחץ אשר מצרים לא יחצים ויסעם. וציין השם ביות חזוקה בזרוע נתיר במוירי גודל באויסס ובמויפסים. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes us out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes everything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the power to put the world on hold. Everything you thought can't stop, it can stop. And nothing. People are going to get wild, people are going to get emotional, and life is going to go on. The world goes on. The world is much bigger than this. Our imagination is smaller. But the world doesn't get excited. The world just keeps moving. Life goes on. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the power. But who have we seen so far interact with life? We've only seen his messengers. We've only seen his shluchim, his malochim. Sometimes we see Malachi Kabbalah, like now. Malachi Kabbalah are doing his work. And sometimes we see good, kind angels are enhancing life. And every time it's him. But here Mitzrayim, he came special. Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo shliach. Why? Because every malach, every shliach, if we don't understand who we're dealing with, then what's the point of saving us? It's just going to go from one problem to another problem. If today somebody gave us all enough money and we don't have to work ever again, would we be out of Mitzrayim? No, we wouldn't stop fighting over something else. And so only HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only the recognition of the truth can save us. Until then, whatever problem we're going to solve, we're going to find ourselves in other problems. Why? Because we are the problem. So how are you going to save us? Where are you going to go where you're not going to take us with you? There's only one place. And that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoidei ba'atzmei. Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo shliach. It's the recognition of truth. It's the recognition of reality, that somebody else, something else, designed something that you need to correspond with. You can't make it up as you go. That's not how it works. Because we've been lost. We've been purposely misguided. Originally, man wasn't created to receive beliefs from previous generations. But man was too ignorant to realize that he shouldn't believe things from previous generations, and therefore things had to be written already, because man became indoctrinated. Man started believing things that he didn't even understand. And then he got himself into a lot of trouble. So how are we going to climb out of that? How are we going to climb out of 50 shiurim of tima, 50 shiurim of imagination, of not knowing what is going on and why is it going on? So for that we need a Torah. Before we were born, we knew the Torah. We didn't have to go through college. We didn't have to go through school. We naturally knew the Torah. We are the Torah. But the Torah within us has been confused. So how are we going to straighten it out? For that we need a Torah. For that we need already an external text where we can interact and try to understand and get to the bottom of what's really taking place. What's real and what's not real. And so the only thing that's ultimately real is HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoidei ba'atzmei. And that's what takes us out of Mitzrayim. And then we get to the Makkos. So now the Makkos, as we always know, 10 corresponds to the spheres. The spheres, the midas, the seichel is 10. And so on each Makkah, the goal was to reduce the confusion, to give a Makkah to Mitzrayim, to hurt the imagination that's disconnected from reality, that's manipulating reality, and Rafael Yisrael to heal Klal Yisrael, to heal the truth. So this is each Makkah as it was coming, it was doing both. And the Seder, where it goes, is it goes from the bottom up. So it starts with the Malchus, which is Dam. Dam is the blood that creates our thoughts, because even now, as we're thinking, we're projecting a concept from blood, and we are experiencing it as if it's present in front of our brain, but it is most certainly not. We're just making it up. How do we have the power to make it up? Because we have very powerful blood. We have blood that can think. And so the first area of interaction, the first area of realizing the truth, is to come back to the blood, to the Malchus. What gets created by everything that gets secreted by our organs? Blood. And then that blood comes to the brain, and then the brain reads it and has an experience. And so this is the Malchus. This is the result of your entire body, of everything that you're experiencing. And so from here, within here, goes Moshe Rabbeinu to separate good from evil, to separate the right things from the wrong things. And so it goes up all the way to Makes B'choros. Makes B'choros represent the Kesed, the beginning, the start from where everything flows. And this is like in a person, when we would look at his body, if we would look at his body like a family, then we would say that the Rosh, his head, is a Bechor. The head is the beginning. And if we look at him spiritually, we say that his intelligence is the beginning. His intelligence is the Rosh. So Makes B'choros means Nogef L'Mitzrayim, take away intelligence from the Egyptians by proving to them that there's something more powerful that they don't know about. And Rufay Yisrael, show Klal Yisrael intelligence by giving them access to that space beyond that Moshe Rabbeinu was connecting them with. And then we have, it's getting long, so we're going to go a little faster. Reb Gamliel Omer, Kol Shalom Shlosh Dvarim Ele BaPesach LeYotzi DeChavos Ve'ele and Pesach Matzah Imoreh. These three things are the underlying principles of the night. If somebody doesn't understand these underlying principles, then he doesn't understand the message. And what is it? Pesach. What was Pesach about? Asher Posach al Botei B'nei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim b'Nokves Mitzrayim. That there was an inherent difference between this way of thinking, our way of thinking, our life, our understanding, and therefore our spirit, our nefesh, and the way that they thought, the way that they understood. And therefore, when the Makkah came, it was coming in a way, where the Makes B'choros we're talking about, it was coming in a way where it was guided. It knew where to hit. It knew the difference between what's healthy tissue and what's unhealthy tissue, what's real and what's not real, what's chokhmah and what's kishuf. And that's inherent in all of the Bria, that when somebody is aligned with the truth, then the forces that are within nature that can usually harm humanity will not be able to harm him. But that's only when somebody is aligned with the truth. And not only that, but even the animals are going to be able to recognize him as their master, as their leader. And so when somebody is aligned with the truth at that level, then the koiches are serving him. That's what they're here for. And this is the message of Pesach. This is why we shecht the carbon Pesach, like we've discussed, that this represents the first mazel in the zodiac out of the 12 mazalis. And this, the shechting it, the Mitzrayim would worship it because they worship nature and they believe that there's nothing but nature that we need to observe. And Klal Yisrael said, no, there's an intelligence within man that all of nature was created to serve. And therefore we're going to shecht the carbon Pesach exactly at that time, and we're going to prove that all of life, including the zodiac, was created to serve the intelligence of man. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the intelligence of man, and that's why he created the zodiac and not vice versa. And so therefore we shouldn't be worshipping anything. Human beings should be worshipping the intelligence and connecting to the truth, and they shouldn't be trying to serve other purposes and other agendas which cause humanity to suffer. And so that's the first level, the first message, Pesach. Matzah, like we discussed, that we create our experience, and we can't allow the bread that we create with the 22 letters, with the chita, the words that we use, the concepts that we create, to be contaminated, to be with old feelings and emotions that are tainting our experience, that are chomets, that are left over from the past, that are what combined to become our ego, what combined to become our sensitive area where we feel separate from everything and everybody else, where we don't realize the unity, where we don't realize that we're really one and the same with everybody else. So that's the concept of matzah, to be aware of what we create. And moror is the realization that there is within creation a medicine. And the intelligent way of taking that medicine is acceptance, is trying to dig to the bottom of what is the message, where am I wrong, why am I offending reality in some way, why am I offending nature in some way, and not to be what's called in Chazal boyed b'yisurim, that when a person sees difficulty, then he turns against God, because even in time of difficulty you still have nobody to turn to other than God. There's only your source that you can ever turn to. And so if times are difficult, it's a time for reflection. It's a time for trying to dig deeper and find understanding. It's not a time to move away. You need your Creator more in those moments than in any other time. And that's the message of Moror, that it comes for a purpose, there's a cheshbon, and you're not going to be left paying more than you were supposed to. Everything has an exact math, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not mevater even on the littlest schar that a beria deserves, that any creature deserves. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make sure that gets received. And this is here where we come. He has to see himself going out of Mitzrayim, because it says, you should talk to your son and tell him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did this to me. So in order to really be able to do a Leil Seder, you have to be out of Mitzrayim first. Otherwise, how are you going to say to your son, this is what Hashem did to me when he took me out of Mitzrayim? When did he take you out of Mitzrayim? Are you out of Mitzrayim? And so a person has to try to realize on this night that he's not going back to his old self ever again. Whatever was is in the past. This is a new cycle. This is a new zodiac. This is a new reality. And therefore, he's leaving Mitzrayim at that moment. If he'll be dragged back into Mitzrayim the next day, that's already something else. But while he's telling his son, he's out of Mitzrayim. He needs to tell it like somebody who is not in Mitzrayim. So then the son will be able to listen. Then he will understand that there's really something else, that something else is really possible. Otherwise, the son will repeat the same mistakes as the father. They will all stay in Mitzrayim. And so, all of us left Mitzrayim. That's why it says that all our neshamas were by Matan Torah, because the neshamas of Klal Yisrael keep getting recycled and recycled until they're going to be so pure that they're going to be able to contain the light. And it's the same neshamas. It's the same neshamas in the tzoin that Yaakov Avinu was taken care of for Lavan. It's the same neshamas in Mitzrayim. It's the same neshamas in Eretz Yisrael. It's the same neshamas in Galus. And it's going to be the same neshamas who leave the Galus. And it's all a matter of how pure are they, how ready are they. And so, if we understand all this, lefichach, for this reason, we have to be grateful, because he created the whole storyline, the whole narrative, so that we can be grateful. Why? Because being grateful is what the body was designed to do. All other functions can temporarily sustain the body, but they don't rejuvenate the body, they don't give it life the way that Lahoides Elahalel does. To feel grateful, to feel the abundance that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us within our very heart, within our soul, to recognize, to appreciate. And this depends a lot on the environment. The environment could make us not realize, and then we have to wake ourselves up. So then we say some Hallel, once we're in the mood already, and then we go back to Moreh Korech Shulchan Aruch, like we discussed. and then finally comes nirtza. So this is an experience. This is like a lifetime of study in just this few hours. And so we need to try as best as we can to deliver a message that's on target, that's getting the listeners to the right emotion. If we push in the wrong places, if, for example, we want to sit and talk long while everybody's hungry because, we're unprepared properly, or different things are happening around the table and the mood is already not there, so then we should be careful. We can make a chilul Hashem also by trying to push things that are not appropriate, that are not being received properly. The goal is to create specific emotions of excitement and realization within the children. It's not that they should hear this word or hear that word or sit like this or sit like that. That's not the goal, and that can be very counterproductive. It can make children feel like they don't want any part of it, and then we lost the whole point. We could have just made a regular dinner, and we didn't have to do this whole thing. We're not doing anybody any favors. If it's going to be V'Yigalta Levincha and it's going to deliver the message, then we received something. Then we created a memory, we created malachim, we created realities that are going to be productive, they're going to help the child, and they're going to guide him on his journey. If we create the wrong type of malachim, we're not helping. We have to understand that. And so that's how we get to bracha, that's how we get to hallel, and that's how we finally get to nirtza. Nirtza means that there is an esratzis, that people are sitting there with smiles on their faces. People are happy to be alive. That's what it means, nirtza. So it's not simply about mumbling over and saying it in the tune that it's been said. It has to be meaningful, because otherwise there's not going to be V'Yigalta Levincha. And that means that the child is going to grow up and he's not going to know what he's celebrating or why, and it's not even going to feel for him like he really wants to anymore. It's not going to necessarily feel like a celebration. So this is something to definitely keep in mind as we go through the Seder. Children have limited attention span, and that's why we want them to ask. The best way for a child to receive information is when he asks. That's when he's really ready to hear the answer. All the other times when we interrupt whatever they're doing to tell them what we think is important, it usually just goes in the one ear and it leaves in the other. So if we want it to have an impact, they have to be curious, they have to want to know, they have to be involved, and then it goes into the deeper chambers of that beautiful little imagination that is trying to grasp what on earth is going on. Who are these people around me, and why am I here? Even though I might not be able to say those words, that's a question in every little mind, in every child's mind. That's the natural question. And we still have that question open. That file has never been closed. As old as we might be, that question is still a pertinent question that still needs an answer. And so we want to keep that question alive. We want to keep that question in the front, in the center of the child's mind, so that he's not fooled by people who make themselves important and pretend like they know what's going on, when in reality all they know is what they want. They don't really care what's going on. So the child needs to be aware of that. The child needs to realize that there's something more to life, that there's something deeper, that there's a message for us that's awaiting the right person with enough intelligence to read it. The children need to understand that, because they are the soldiers who are going to go fight that fight. We're putting them in harm's way. We're teaching them things that we don't fully understand, but at least we should do it with the right heart, with the gentleness and the kindness, that they should want to carry on this fight, that they should want to find the truth, that it should be a privilege for them to be part of this struggle. And that can only happen if we ourselves feel those feelings, if we ourselves see life from that perspective. And then we're going to finish off with the Chad Gadya. Chad Gadya is the song that we say all the way at the end of the Haggada, for those who are still awake, and it has a very deep meaning. It's a metaphor. I'm going to give one of the ways of learning it that I found here. So it says like this: the gadya, the goat, is Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is makriv a carbon constant, right, every year, carbon Pesach, and they represent the goat. They represent the gedi, and that gedi is the Zaben Abba B'trei Zizeh, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kaviyachol, he created a world because he wants this gedi. Why does he want this gedi? Because he knows that one day this gedi is going to grow up, it's going to become more intelligent, it's going to become more knowledgeable, and then from there he's going to make a world. From there he's going to make people, intelligent people. And so then, while this gedi is still premature, is still not grown, there comes a cat and eats the goat. It says this represents the Egyptians, that Klal Yisrael went amongst them when the Shvatim sold Yosef. And when the Shvatim sold Yosef, they took a gedi, they shechted it, and they said to Yaakov, Chaya roach elasi, evil animal ate Yosef. But really, it wasn't the blood of Yosef. Yosef wasn't eaten. Yosef was sold. And it was the blood of a gedi. So it's like they ate the gedi. They created a sin that caused Klal Yisrael to go into Mitzrayim. And then V'asa Kalba comes Paroi, the dog, V'noshach L'shinra, and he bites the cat. The cat being the Shvatim. The Shvatim did a sin by selling Yosef. So they ate the gedi. They ate the peace of mind of Yaakov Avinu, which was Yisrael, which was Klal Yisrael. They took away his peace of mind through shechting a goat. And then now Paroi is taking revenge. Paroi is giving trouble to the grandchildren of the Shvatim, so he represents the dog. Then comes the stick, Vasachitra. This is the Mate Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu comes with a stick and he hits the dog. He tells Paroi, you have to release the people. You have to release the people from Mitzrayim. Then says V'asa Nura, comes the fire. V'saraf Lechitra, it burns the stick. So it says the fire represents the evil inclination. The evil inclination comes and burns the prophecy of Moshe. Instead of us following the wisdom, following the prophecy of Moshe, now the fire of evil, the fire of our confused inclinations, is driving us into Galus, is driving us away from intelligence, away from understanding, away from wisdom. Then V'asa Maya V'chova L'nira, come the Anshe Knesses HaGdoila, and they kill the Yetzirah of Avodah Zarah. They kill the deeper level of our fire, the deeper level of our power, the deeper level of our spirit. So they turn off the fire. The fire of our spirit was so harmful that we were better off not having it. We were better off being not powerful than being powerful and evil. And so they came with the water. They came with the water, which is the Torah. And they wrote the Torah for us in such a way that we lost all our power. Now we were serving. Now we became slaves again. Then V'asa Torah comes the ox, V'shosa Lamaya, and he drinks the water. Comes Edom and Christianity, and they drink the water, meaning they take away all the freshness, all the excitement that was in the Torah. Now, from this perspective, from the Christian perspective, the Torah becomes dry. Nor nechra v'yovesh. Before, the Torah was mayim mesukim, was sweet. But now, from this perspective, the water became bitter. So we look at the water from a perspective of a Western culture, from a perspective of mundane reality, and it looks bitter. It looks like they're asking us to serve, and they're not really telling us what we're serving. And so this took away the Mesikas HaTorah. This took away the sweetness of the Torah. Then V'asa Shoichet comes the Shoichet, that's Mashiach ben Yosef, and he kills the ox. He kills Christianity. There's going to be a war, and he's going to be like what they call the Antichrist. He's going to come and make the world realize that this way of living is inappropriate. So then, after that happens, Vosa Malach HaMoves V'shochat L'shoichet. The Malach HaMoves comes and kills Mashiach ben Yosef. This is by the war of Gog and Magog. It says Mashiach ben Yosef is going to get killed. V'achar kach Yova Kadosh Baruch Hu Vosa Kadosh Baruch Hu V'shochat L'Malach HaMoves. Kadosh Baruch Hu comes and he kills the Yetzirah. And then there's no more death. There's no more evil. So this is like the trajectory of the nation. From the beginning, the Zab and Abba B'trei Zuzei, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu designated a people that are going to be the ones that change destiny. And there was constantly a fight over these people. The forces were constantly fighting. They're pushing us around to all kinds of different interests, all kinds of different agendas that different forces, that different people had at different times. And at the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself will come and he will show us the truth and he will guide us. And then once he's going to show us that, humanity is going to transcend this level of confusion. The imagination is going to permanently reside with the intelligence, and then evil will no longer occur. Nobody will create it, and therefore it won't exist. And so this is what we look forward to. We should be zoicha, that we should be able to be makriv the Korban Pesach and to rejoice together in the Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi b'meira b'yameinu.